Well, welcome to the darkest cave of them all. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. There's plenty to talk about today in the short-term timeframes, actually, as I do want to follow up on yesterday's short-term timeframe analysis. As far as the higher-term timeframes, and of course, traditional markets plus Forex, nothing moving there because really very little's changed on top of that. So this might even be a little bit of a shorter video, and this is the point where you check the time at the bottom, and we'll see if that actually does hold true. Anyways, I would like to wish you the best, and the happiest as we get through this nice little Sunday of mostly lulls and boringness and sandpaper times, looking at drawing paint, but yes, there actually is a few interesting things on the low term time frames right now, so I do think that it is quite warranted to have a nice little video here. Anyways, looking at the open interest over here on the Krown application, which we found at app.krown.net, we actually did see a nice little drop off from yesterday to today, as Bitcoin essentially holds the bottom side of the short term range at about 11,300-ish region. So not really any major breaks, but we're right now establishing a new range on the open interest. I would imagine, just going off of what we've seen thus far, that range is going to be encompassed between the open interest levels of about 2.5 billion. Sorry, not 2.5 billion, but 2 billion and 50 million. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, there we go. Very, very different number right there. And about 2.1.5 billion to the upside. Now, I'm not certainly set on that just yet. I think that we need to see a little more price action to go alongside of it. But as things do kind of settle in, and we do see all of the top end metrics over here take on a nice little reading with this current structure and price action, that should start to come into play relatively soon, probably this week. Anyways, checking out the Bitcoin dominance, what do we see? We see it's still hanging around that 59% region, of which we checked on in the charts yesterday, and still looking for a major reversal there. I was actually, I believe I both, I think I was short-term bearish there, medium and long-term, and macro very bullish, actually. Fear and greed index popping down 1 point from a 56 to a 55, not really getting much out of that. And I imagine on the data tab, we're probably not going to find any canaries in the coal mine here. But worth a look anyways. And actually the funny rate is whoa, that's something actually. Okay, you know what? I take that back. All of the funny rates for all major exchanges, FTX, OKX, Bybit, BitMEX, Huobi, are all negative right now. So that means that if you are holding long positions, you're actually getting paid to hold those long positions at the current moment in time. FEMEX, obviously, we're going to be taking off because our API is not right for it right now. So that global funny rate would actually be negative if that was properly set up. So keep that in mind. Anyways, Binance, a little bit of an outlier there too, but I imagine that they probably go off of a margin funding pool there, although I'd have to double check in on that one. Anyways, going to the actual price charts themselves and talk about some more interesting things. Bitcoin bouncing once off the bouncing once again off. Yeah, that's, I think, the proper structure there. Syntax, not my forte, but bouncing off the 10 symbol once again and holding the bottom side of the range. And yes, I do think that this is going to line up for a short-term move to the upside, probably to the top side of the range, somewhere around 11.5. I did say yesterday probably a move back up above, around 11.450-ish region. It looks like it tried right here at 11.421. Close enough is close enough, but realistically just a very, 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 very sideways paint drawing type day. So realistically, that move, I'm actually still looking for it to happen, and I actually would extend that target, like I said, maybe even a little bit north of 11,500-ish region. But that's, again, only relevant to the short-term timeframes. It can obviously have medium and long-term implications here, but the same levels are essentially relevant, and that would be basically this level at around basically 11.5 actually to 11.530-ish region, depending upon what time frame that you want to use. If I'm using 4-hour dildo closures, I'd be using about 11,520. If I'm using 12-hour closures, I'd be using about 11,500. If I'm using daily closures, 11,500 once again. And if I'm using 4-hour, no, we already talked about 4-hour closures. What if I was using 2-hour closures? I'd use about 11,550-ish region. So any one of those things getting resolved above that region, closing a successful dildo above that region, and then yes, I'd essentially be looking for the same thing that we spoke about yesterday, an extension back up towards 11,800-ish region, of which I would look for a quick pullback there. But I actually don't think that things would stop there, to be quite honest with you, on the higher term timeframes. Short-term pullback does not necessarily even mean that it might even register on high term timeframe. Realistically, I do think that Bitcoin would just float its way onwards and upwards toward the 12,100 region up here. The same areas that were relevant in August are going to be relevant on the way up if Bitcoin does break to the upside here. So again, I need to be very careful with the way that I'm stating these sorts of things, because yes, short term, I do believe that Bitcoin is going to test up here back towards about 11.5. We'll just call it colloquially speaking. Does it actually break it or not? That I do not have an opinion on. That is not something for me to say. And more importantly, I'd say that if this move does happen, especially before CMEs are open for trading later today at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Yeah, there we go. Then I'd be a little bit skeptical of it at the very least. So for right now, looking at the short-term time frames, kind of rounding out exactly why I have this bias boner going on. We do have a little bit of hidden bullish divergence. Caretaker's RSI signaling it off. Nice one. We do see that alongside 4-hour momentum also just turn into the upside as well, finding that same sort of trend line that we spoke about yesterday, I do believe, coming in all the way back from, actually, no, not really. Or I guess I have it, I guess I must have it drawn in for a different time frame. Basically, aggression right here. You can see getting all these major regions, getting all the lows since our early September dumps right around here. I think this low right here, this low right here, and, well, more importantly, the one that we just put in right now. Now, this is all going to be matched up with historical volatility percentile, which is being shown right here as having exactly zero reads, multiple zero reads in a row. So I do think that we are getting this move probably today, latest tomorrow. Extremely likely we will test up at the very least to like 11.5. And does it imply that we actually break the range? Well, looking at historical volatility percentile like this, it definitely could be yes. Oh, fuck. I forgot to make another announcement. God damn it. My bad. Sorry. Anyways, yeah, so apparently there was some I don't know, some people in the Discord yesterday who were like messaging others, doing like the old scamming thing, like the fucking, Nigerian prince thing. I imagine that most people know that that's an obvious scam. Obviously, we've taken care of the issue, but we're going to have to but because this is like, that really shouldn't be happening to begin with, because we have like such a high level of security in the Discord. What I'm gonna have is I'm gonna have the bot, or like our bot, or the identifier bot, essentially, if you're familiar with it. It's gonna go over everyone and just kind of like, get rid of all the people who aren't verified and shit like that. So probably like a few people get kicked out or something like that. If that happens to you, just rejoin and go through the process again. I know it's annoying, but it's just the best way to handle these sorts of things, because, well, it's more important to get rid of these fucking these people who are just incessantly private messaging people. Also, if you want to, you can always turn off private messages from the server, and that will make it so that people can't message you anyways, because it's just an unfortunate reality that in a Discord like this, there's going to be bad actors who want to just go out of their way to like try to message people. Obviously, usually it's going to be incredibly obvious. But I do also think that it's important for us to, do our part and take action. So just fair warning. It's probably not going to affect like really anyone, but there you go. Anyways, looking at 4-hour RSI, what do we see here? Popping back above the exponential again, as that hidden bullish divergence does get ticked off as well. I'm looking for this one to pop back up to the top side of the range, essentially on the short term, which again, about 11.5. If you really want to like pinpoint it down, like maybe 11.530, we'll call it that. Alongside historic volatility percentile and momentum also, to see if the very, very low term timeframes below this one line up with it. We would expect it to, if this one is going to have some validity with it. And yes, 3-hour Stokes, nice and erect right there. I think that this was actually the time frame that I had that trend line in. Yes, indeed, I did. Same areas, early September going all the way to early October and middle of October, and then more recently right now. And all these things, marking off some pretty pivotal lows within this current structure, going, again, back towards here. So I do like that, how it is consistent. 3-hour RSI looking, constructive here. I wouldn't say that this is like, super fucking strong, but looks like it wants to kind of set in a base and give a little bit of a try back up towards the bullish control zone alongside historical volatility percentile here, which is even more aggressively contracted. So it's exactly what we want to be seeing. We should naturally see everything kind of come down in a more aggressive measure, going to lower and lower timeframes, and that's what we have right here. Anyways, what do we see on the bi-hourly? We do see, same thing as well. Bi-hourly historical volatility percentile incredibly low. This one very likely to expand sooner rather than later, we'll put it that way. Bi-hourly RSI constructive here, bouncing off the neutral zone. Would be looking for it to, again, put in a drive towards the bullish control zone. Does it actually stay within the bullish control zone or not? That would probably be your break of 11.5 550ish region. So again, I want to see proof, not promises with these sorts of things. Bi-hourly Stokes nice and erect as well. And going over here to the hourly, what do we see? We actually see all lower term time frames on the same side right now. So hourly Stokes, once again, erect. Same thing right here. Same thing right here. Yeah, I do think that Bitcoin very, very likely to head back up towards this region. Again, does not imply that we'll actually break it. And it would be now worthwhile to talk about what happens if we actually break to the downside, because, it is, technically it's still weekend time, and it's very much not unheard of to like go and test both sides of the fucking range, just basically, the same way that we did yesterday in the same 4-hour dildo. Like, what happens? You test 11.3 and you test 11.450 in the same, like basically in the same 5-minute dildo, right? So with that in mind, I do look at this as still, still kind of baking here. But if Bitcoin were to say go up to 11,500, reject really quickly, come back down, and then successfully close its first 4-hour dildo below 11,300, or where the green 55 exponential moving average is starting to come in, which by the way you can see has been getting our last few wicks within this region, then yes, there is some downside to play out. Same areas that we've been looking at for the past week and a half, but we'll go over them once again. If 11,300 does break on a 4-hour dildo and not on anything lower than that, if you're using a 2-hour, I would use 11,250. Then yes, I'd be looking for a move down to about $11,000 base. I would be looking for a bounce there as well. Is that anything relevant on CMEs? I'm sure people are gonna be calling gap over there, but I'd actually argue that that's already been filled. So while I do think that there'd be a small bounce there, I actually do think that things would probably get sold into after that, and we come back down into the mid 10,000s, and then potentially put in a base there. But with that in mind, I'd really want to take things one step at a time, because below 11,000, things do potentially change for the long term. Medium and short term, obviously yes. Targeting moves back down to, I believe it's probably like around 10.6. Actually more like 10.7 or 10.8. Actually, yeah, more like 10.8. That's not that impressive then. But below 10.8, then yeah, we can start to target moves all the way down to about 10.5. Yeah, that looks a lot better. And then below there, back down to $10,000 base. So there is some nice give and go. But again, for right now, I'm looking for a little bit of short-term uppity up. And let's see what the medium-term time frames have to say about that. Looking at 12-hour right here. Once again, another bounce off the 21 exponential average. Isn't that crazy? Looking at 12-hour Stokes, I do think that this is very much of interest as well. So it has come down exactly to that same trend line that we spoke about yesterday, right? I have to redraw it in because they, it changes for different time frames, right? But this trend line is very, very important right here, because not only has it gotten, some very important lows early September, late September, and in early October, but also it would be governing against the bearish control zone. So typically speaking, a lot of assets, or just in general knowledge, you will see kind of counter trend pressure around that region, just naturally speaking. Bots kind of buying that region up, doing a little bit of scalp, and coming out of this space right here, just looking at price action as it is. I would say that if this next test does come down to that area and you do start to see it curl back around, especially, that's gonna be a good signal that not only are we going to test 11,500-ish region, but could potentially actually break it and then play out some of those more interesting upside moves. Looking at 12-hour RSI, do we have anything to make out of this? Again, I like it long-term, constructive, similar to the daily as well. Short-term, we did get that move to the downside, but I don't really have much to make out of it. On top of that, technically it is saying that we do have potentially hidden bullish divergence being formed right here as well, but it's not confirmed just yet. It will see, and look, the dots just went away right there too. So it literally has to close basically about $20 above where we are right now on the next 12-hour dildo closure. Then it will initiate it, and then yes, 11.5, 11.520-ish region is probably where I'm looking towards, with potential for continuation above there. But you have to really be thinking, everything together, right? So that means that 12-hour Stokes likely do turn up at that point in time. And then, we already spoke about the upside, right? 11.8 and 12,000, still very much relevant. So with that in mind, let's go check out the daily. What's the daily doing right here? We kind of started on this, out on this one. Daily Stokes still coming down pretty aggressively. That would probably be my biggest reason for caution alongside traditional markets. In fact, traditional markets are really the reason why I don't want to be bullish on Bitcoin right now, because very rarely do we see these things go in opposite directions. And if it does go in opposite directions, usually traditional markets going up and Bitcoin going sideways, not getting any of the benefit from it. So it's not necessarily the best relationship right there. What do we see on daily RSI? Again, constructive over the long period of time, but short term, I'm not so confident on that. So again, that's more in line with what we see on traditional markets like NASDAQ, like SPY, which do, as we spoke about yesterday. And if you didn't watch yesterday's video, then just to reference it really, really quickly, probably looking for a gap down to open up into Monday. How does that affect Bitcoin? Well, typically they are very fucking correlated, so fair enough. Other than that, on the daily, once again, pointing out the historical volatility percentile here, we do see a very long-term contraction going all the way back towards September, which represents this whole swath of price action right here. And that essentially implies that the breakage from this current base, call it what you want to call it. We'll just call it 11,500, basically. is gonna produce, big price action. The reason why I say that is because anytime that we do get this low, well, that's what happens. Like this area right here, producing about a $3,000 move to the upside. This area coming out of this base right here, $3,000 move to the upside. This one right here producing almost like a 3x to the upside from 4,000 to actually more than that to 14,000. This one over here producing about a 50% move to the downside. Again, it is direction neutral, but it does imply that big moves of price action are be coming out of this space right here. So that's why I'm also not too gung-ho about taking positions before the resolution on this one. Do I think that I could probably buy this area and take a little bit of a scalp? Probably yes. But again, I do think that it's more, I just kind of stick to my guns on this one. I'd rather wait for, something more obvious or for traditional markets to open back up. Just the way that I trade doesn't mean that's right or wrong for anyone else. Of course, there's plenty of people who make a shit ton of money on the weekends. That's just my way of doing things for full transparency. And I don't really feel that. I also just kind of like having the weekends off, from thinking about it to begin with as well. Trading's fun, but it's good. It's a good time to kind of sit and reflect. I mean, you need some time to especially in a 24/7 market, you need some time to fucking sit down and reference your trading journal. At least that's what that was a big thing for myself. And going forwards, I mean, it's still a pretty big part anyways. But got to set out some time for that. And when it's 24/7 game, there's not really anyone, tapping you on the shoulder saying, hey bro, time to put down the fucking keyboard and mouse, time to get off the goddamn internet for a little bit of time, which I feel like would be that. If you want to get rich as fuck, that would be a great business idea. Cause a lot of people need that. Hey man, internet's been on the internet for a while today. Myself included, man. I abuse the internet like none other. But man, I gotta tell you guys, one of my fucking all-time favorite things to do on the internet is to go into Instagram and Twitter are the best for this, and Facebook too. But I don't really go on Facebook for the last, I don't know, maybe 5 years now. It's been a long time. But Twitter and Instagram are phenomenal for this. And just go into any post, pretty much any blue check marks post, and just read down the comments, and you'll find someone who's really fucking angry or just really, 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 really abrasive. Usually it's political. Sometimes, I don't know, it could be about fucking coronavirus, or it could be about QAnon, or it could be about whatever thing is is the flavor of the day. And then you'll find these people who just go fucking crazy about it. And if you click on their, what I like to do is I like to click on their profile, and then I like to see what they do all day. And they're there all day. They're there all day on Twitter or Instagram, just commenting on other people's shit, things that they don't agree with, thinking that they're going to change someone's mind, and thinking that they're, well, I don't really know what they're thinking, but it's just so fucking interesting to watch. I swear there's a couple of people I do this with on Twitter, and it's I don't know, man. I don't know why it's so interesting, but it really is. So fair enough. Maybe I'm just embarrassing myself right now by talking about my guilty pleasures. It's super fucking weird, but it's also, I don't know, man. It's like watching a car crash. You just can't look away. Just can't fucking look away. So yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is Bitcoin short-term bullish as long as it's above 11.3, breaks 11.3 to the downside. Yeah, things turn around short-term, medium-term, back down to 11,000. Big pivot right there. I would be looking for a bounce overall. If that area does fail, then we got some new to talk about. Until then, realistically, I'm looking for Bitcoin to pop back up to about 11.5. How long has this video been? Oh my God, this could actually be the shortest video, but it's actually not going to be the shortest video because I'm going to look at a few other things as well. Let's go over here and check out the secondary charts. And what do you know? Well, this is a 4 hour, so maybe I should get my fucking saving paper out of my hands and go over here to something that actually matters. Yeah, here's a 12 hour right here. DMI Plus is still technically dominant, but really waning in comparison. 20 Simple is increasing its positive slope, so I do like that. But we're going to be forced into a direction here very, very soon between the 10 Simple and the 20 Simple, as they will naturally cross, well, actually in this case, a bearish cross, if Bitcoin fails to essentially move to the top side of the range, probably within this next 2 days of trading action. Looking at MACD on the 12 hour, coming down a little bit, but not really relevant to anything that we see on price action right now. That cross down was not a failure of a level, it was essentially a rejection of one, so that's par for the course. There's nothing new there. Let's see if anything's interesting on the daily. ADX is actually still strengthening. I would have not expected that at all after yesterday. I definitely would have not expected that at all, which is very bizarre. But fair enough. DMI Plus is still technically dominant, and what we would expect here, if this run really is to continue, is we'd expect the DMI Plus to actually bounce off this region, and that would be a damn good signal that not only are we going to head up to about 11.5, probably the top side of the Bollinger Bands here, which is, guess where, about 11.750 to 11.800-ish region. But again, this is still very much undecided, so we're really kind of like grasping at straws right now. I don't think that this is all that applicable exactly right now. MACD obviously losing a little bit of its grip here too. Histogram starting to fade away, but with this hinting at a cross to the downside relatively soon, maybe within the next 3 days or so, if Bitcoin essentially trades sideways here, yeah, that could be problematic, but I still want to see a break of 11.3 first, and then that would really start to solidify the ideas that not only will Bitcoin come down to about 11,000, but further south than that, 10,000 or like anywhere in the low 10,000s, like 10,000 to 10,300-ish region would probably be a nice little base to come back down into. And I'd actually probably be looking for another big bounce right there as well. Anyways, go over here to the weekly and see if there's anything of note. As it is right now, Bitcoin looking like a little bit of a doji dildo. Doesn't really give us all that much, but it does open the trading, it does open the doors for a pretty easy trade coming into next week. Again, assuming if we close something like this, with basically a bodiless dildo, that is a doji dildo, which is a signal of indecision, perhaps even reversal. And typically speaking, that is when you can do those wick plays where essentially you look for continuation. If you just very, very simply, like very fucking simple remedial shit here, but it does work. Although less hit rate than waiting for closures, obviously. Taking out the high side of it, yeah, there you go. Looking for a move to 12,000, probably beyond. Taking out the low side of it, yeah, again, there you go. Looking for a move to about 10.5 and probably back down all the way to wherever the 21 is. Actually, that's around 10.5. So fair enough. Maybe that would be the extent of it. Looking at momentum oscillators here, though, I think that this is a lot more enlightening, as weekly for Bitcoin is actually bullish. I do like it. Again, I actually really want to be bullish on Bitcoin, but it's difficult because of traditional markets. They are not. At least they're not really right now. At the very least, they're looking for a pullback. At the very, at the very worst, it's looking like a full-on reversal. So fair enough. Anyways, looking at this right here for the weekly, popping back up above the neutral zone and hinting at across the upside, which will inevitably happen with any sort of a closure here or higher. So that would, a little bit put the odds in favor of the upside. Looking at the weekly RSI, again, very constructive over a long period of time. If you see this next RSI go into the bullish control zone and stay in there, that's going to be a damn good signal that we will very likely resolve this one to the upside overall. And that'll look pretty damn good. Do we see anything on weekly for the Bollinger Bands here? Not anything of particular note. What about weekly MACD? Could potentially pop back up to the upside. Again, too early to call it. DMI Plus still dominant and actually increasing its momentum, so that is good as the ADX strengthens. Again, kind of splitting hairs here, but anytime that we have seen the ADX or DMI get dominant on the weekly, those have actually been your big bad moves. Just kind of like back testing it, you need two parts. You need one of them to be dominant above the threshold, which I currently have at about 22, I believe. Is it 22 or 24? I think I have it at like 23 actually. Anyway, it's all basically the same thing anyways. And then you want to see the ADX strengthening. So, for example, that gave you the short right here from 6,000 going all the way down to 3,000. That gave you this long here going all the way from 4,000 all the way to 14,000. And by the way, these are like timing it extremely well. As you can see, next signal was where right here, so it gave you this signal, which gave the move, not the full move, but about 8,500 to about 10,500, still a $2,000 move. And then your next signal was right here. This was like literally 1 week before the mega dump of coronavirus from about 8,500 down to about 4,000. And then more recently, we got this signal right here coming out of the $9,500 base, and so far seems to still be holding. So that I do put some weight on that long term. But again, it's traditional markets that have me very much fearful here. We can quickly reference them. Actually, I guess this video is actually going to be shorter. Let's see, where is my NAS? Where's my NASy? What I want to see on NAS, or not what I want to see, but what I'd be looking for is probably a gap down open down to about 11.6. The question is, what happens at that level? If it starts to fail 11.6, yes, your next obvious one's going to be about 11.250 to 11.300-ish region, as you can just look at, the higher low structure right there. But this starts to take on a different interpretation, which I would not call a macro reversal on just yet, actually, just because of the very high term timeframes, like the monthly. below 10.6, obviously. That's a very obvious reversal, but that's extremely far away right now. If you're looking at a weekly below about 11,000, yes, reversal talk as well. Like actually happening right now. It's just potential. But first things first, right? So I do think that that's in the cards. But again, looking at weekly RSI here, this is fine. Looking at weekly Stokes, this is not fun. Well, not exactly confirmed fun. What about daily? Yeah, again, I do think that we're going to open up on a bit of a gap down. The question is, what happens at this level right here? If you see this level just get absolutely fucking killed, that's going to be a good signal that yes, the 55 probably does bounce it as well, but realistically, we're going to be heading down to about $11,000 base, and that's going to be the critical area for like the monthly to hold and the weekly to hold as well. If that area starts to break, then we can talk about like a prolonged down market. But for right now, yes, a lower high is in place, and a little bit more downside is implied, especially as momentum also just come down with it. So that's why I do kind of hold reservation here on Bitcoin. Anyways, what else do you want to check out? Maybe a little bit of shitcoin action as well. Let's look at linkies. My Link USDs right here. Wow, that's flat as fuck. That's a very unhelpful chart. Do you have any calls to make out of this? No, absolutely not. My call would be to not trade this. If anything, I'm looking at the short-term timeframes and I'll be looking for a pop back up to $11. That's all that I got. That's all I got. Short term, a little bit of up. Move isn't coming though. That's what I do feel most strongly about. And short term, I would be looking for a move to the upside, but that does not imply that this is going to be like a full on melt to the upside. Just short term, probably back up towards like $11. And then I want to see after that above $11, especially on a daily. I would be extending that to about 12 3/4. A little bit. Maybe over the next week or two, something like that. Let's also look at, do we want to look at Bitcoin dominance again? We could quickly do that too. And what do we see here as we get ready for the weekly closure? Yeah, any sort of a weekly closure here or higher, I'm still going to be very fucking bullish on this, by the way. I don't get bearish on this one once again until it goes back down below about 59%. For right now, it's in progress. Anyways, so that means most altcoins versus their Satoshi value are not going to be doing all that well on the long term. Now, very short term, does that hold true? No, because short term, actually, this is a little bit bearish. Bad terminology to be using there, to be fair, because you really should be talking about long term when you're talking about bearish and bullish. But you know what I mean. It's like likely to come back down a bit in the short term. So alts probably do okay versus their Satoshi value in the short term, or at least hold. But if we're looking at daily, if we're looking at weekly, if we're looking at monthly, all incredibly bullish. So I would, I'd still hold that with reservation. Let's look at Mr. Budor really quick as well. 368 3/4 what we're looking at right now. Yeah, I'd be looking for this one to pop back up alongside Bitcoin towards about 374 1/4 region. What's the lower term time frames looking like here too? Very similar to the Bitcoin. However, just like Bitcoin breaking 11.3, if this one breaks 366 to the downside, I start to get bearish on this one as well. At least for a move back down into this range around the low 340s region. Daily, are we getting anything out of that? Not really, that we already haven't seen. What about the weekly? Looks just like Bitcoin. In fact, if it does close above the 10 simple, I'd look at that as overall good. Closing below is obviously like not good, but it's also not necessarily a death sentence as well. Would imply a range though between about 375 where we are right now, or kind of above where we are right now, actually, all the way down to about 330. And at which point I probably would be looking for a bounce at 330, over the next week or two, and probably does trade back down there. But again, weekly closure still at 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight, so long day left of trading before that becomes any sort of a real consideration. So with that in mind, do we want to be looking at anything else? Is that it for today? We could look at some. Yeah, I think that actually is it for today. This one's going to be a short as fuck video. Holy. Well, actually not really. Still 30 minutes long. Anyways, hope this one finds you well. I guess we'll go back to Bitcoin really, really quickly for a second here. If I had to call it right now, I do think that Bitcoin does make a nice attempt towards about 11.5 region. Does it break it or not? That's a real question. If it does break it to the upside with any sort of a 4-hour closure above, let's call it like 11.5. What is this level exactly here? 11.520 on a 4-hour closure, on a 12-hour 11.510 I think it was, and on a daily 11.500 as well. Then I'd be targeting to move back up to about 11.8 and probably beyond towards 12,000. By the same token, if it fails and and you do see either a 4-hour closure below 11.3 or a 2-hour closure below 11.250, I would be looking for extension all the way down here towards 11,000. Small bounce implied. Then I want to see if that area does fail, problem or potentially big problems. But for right now, again, just a little bit of weekend trading before we get ready for the real trading week tomorrow. And with that said, I'd like to wish you the best of the best once again. Take care, and until next time.